This is TransAfricaRadio.
I was playing piano since a very young age, and I used to play classical piano when I'm practicing. And then I think towards the end of my classical syllabus, like I was 16 when I was about to do my grade 8 piano, I started wondering how cool it would be to have my own songs that I'm playing or writing, whatever. And then I used to try and fidget with the piano and write songs. And I think I wrote my first few songs around then that I performed at school.
How did that go?
They were cool. You know, actually the other day I came across a paper, I don't know where I found it, with the lyrics from long ago that I wrote. And I just thought, oh my gosh.
That bad?
Yeah, that bad. I'm glad I found it and no one else found it. But yeah. But I was trying to write already in high school, and trying to figure out how to make up my own songs. So I think it was that around that time when I realized that I really actually have a passion for writing music, making up, creating new songs, and I guess being a musician. I wanted to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
I used to act. I used to be part of school plays, and then I told my dad I want to be an actress. And he said, yeah, but if you want to be an actress, you have to be able to act. And I'm like, oh, ish.
Actually.
I mean, I don't think I was a great actress, but I was okay. It just don't make me act like I'm crying.
Do you think you had a chance to be an actress?
I think if I honed the skill, yes, I probably would have been an actress. And I mean, you never know. I need to musicians who become actresses. You never know, yeah. So I think it's about honing the skill. Definitely, I think acting is an amazing creative art. It's amazing for me to see someone who has been told that at this part of the movie you must act like you're so sad, and to be drawn into that emotion. It's a skill. So I think like anything, you have to hone it.
And after high school, what happened? What did you do?
So after high school, my intention was initially to go straight to university. I applied for UCT and Tux, and then my mom just said to me, look, you had a really busy matric year. I really had a busy matric year. I mean, I feel like I've never worked as hard as I have in my life. But matric was so hectic, and she said, you haven't had really much time to think about what you want to do. Don't you want to just take a break? My sister at the time was living in the UK, so I went and I took a gap year. I went to stay with her, worked in a bar, you know.
And how was that, like being a young girl from SA moving to the UK? How was the experience for you?
It wasn't so bad because I had my sister there, and but it was a very different environment. People are not as friendly that side as we are here at home. And I think I was lucky to have a sister that side because I met all her friends and they automatically took a liking to me. And she used to be part of a gospel choir just for fun, just hobby. So I joined the gospel choir as well. And then there was this pianist called Francis who was self-taught. And he was just playing, and I was like, what is this guy doing? How is he doing that? And I asked him, like, do you read music? He's like, no, I'm self-taught. Now, coming from a classical background, hearing someone say they're self-taught was just something I wasn't used to. So I told him, how can I learn to play like you, like just from the top of my head and just play whatever I feel? He's like, no, well, just listen to jazz, check out jazz music. And I think he's the guy who sparked that kind of, I must go to university and study jazz. Because initially I was going to just study a general BMAS, which is a classical degree. And it wasn't really going to do for me what jazz has been able to do for me in terms of helping me learn to write music. And so even university, like all these little things that happen, that looking back you realize that, this was actually meant to be, So I went to UCT, Now that I've been in the UK and I realized that the thing that I applied for, which is a general BMA, is not going to help me with this thing I'm trying to do. I need to do this jazz thing. Now with university applications, you do auditions, whatever. And so I had done a classical audition, and when I got to my registration, I was just like, there's a problem. I can't study classical. I need to study jazz, but I don't know how to play jazz. I don't listen to jazz. I don't know what anything is about jazz, but I can't do classical. So the head of the department said I must speak to the head of the jazz department, and I spoke to him. I literally begged him. I said, please, I'll do anything. I just can't study classical, you know. And then he gave me a CD to listen, and I told him I can't play. So even if I were to audition, there'd be nothing you'd be listening to. So he gave me a CD to listen to and just listen to the different songs. He put different jazz songs there and told me to write sort of a critique on the songs. And I think in a sense he was testing my taste. Later on, I realized that some of the, I don't remember all the songs, but some of the songs that were on that CD that he made were a Begin Selegu song and a Thelonious Monk song and Bud Powell as well. But there were other songs, and I just wrote what I liked, what I didn't like, what I thingy, and that's how I got into the jazz degree, you know, which I'm really grateful for. I haven't looked back since.
And how did you navigate that since you didn't know much about jazz? How did it go for you?
It was very nerve-wracking. I think lots of people who play classical and try and go to jazz have got the same sort of experience because jazz is an improvised music style. So I think I almost say that once you get to the edge of classical, there's the challenge of now taking everything you've learned and using it to your discretion. You know, that's basically what jazz is. And sometimes breaking the rules, and sometimes unlearning everything that you've learned. So I'm used to the music is there. I just have to learn and learn and learn, and eventually I can play the song. And now with jazz, the music that they give you is sort of the idea, and you have to embellish it and make what it is for you. And you never hear a jazz person play one song the same way as another jazz person. So that was very challenging, and it challenged me musically so much because I was catching up. Basically, everybody, all my peers were coming from schools that they did jazz in high school. So people had that foundation of jazz. They listened to jazz, and I was just like, ooh. But I was lucky that my first year piano teacher, Andre Peterson, was also had a classical background, so he completely understood my challenges. And he's an amazing jazz pianist who plays with all the great artists around the country. He's probably, I think, one of the best pianists we have in the country. But he's never studied jazz. And he told me that it's really about listening and about keeping your ear open to different styles of music. But listening. He's the one who really got me to feel that, no, don't worry, you'll get there. Just listen a lot to the music. And so it involved a lot of it. Like I literally listened to jazz every day, 24 hours a day, because I was trying to figure it out and catch up. Yeah. Well, the nice thing about studying music was that, especially because I was in Cape Town, and there was a bit of a jazz scene there happening. You start seeing that, okay, it's not necessarily like other degrees where people wait till the end before they start working. So I actually started working as a musician in my second year, doing gigs here and there, coming home with 100 rand and 50 rand and feeling like a boss. Or doing a gig where it paid 500 rand and then I had to hire a keyboard for 500 rand, you know. But I started working as a musician while I was studying, and then again, because they are the older musicians in Cape Town and the more experienced musicians, then you start going to watch their gigs, you start getting booked by some of the older guys, and you learn the ropes as you go, I think. And I always felt that the people who did that, instead of waiting till the end of their degree to start gigging, did themselves a big favor, because you actually learn the ins and outs of finding work for yourself, how to negotiate a fee, blah 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 blah. So by the time I finished, I actually had created a bit of a network to work in Cape Town, corporates as well, did some corporate work, and I had already started writing music, so I was already playing around with a trio. It started with a trio. It included Benjamin Jefter on bass, who still plays with me today, which is incredible, and Ruben Crowe, a great drummer in Cape Town. So we used to do shows. I used to have like concerts in my house, all these hustler things that you used to try, but all that kind of stuff really groomed me in a way. And it never occurred to me that I need to sign with a label and get someone to fund me or whatever, because I don't think I was at that point thinking about my own music. I was just working as a musician, and along the way as well, reading up about the industry, learning about the industry. What I knew, even before I went to university, what I knew was that there are many musicians, both local and international, who have had really rough deals with record labels. And all I always knew about record labels was that I had to be very sure, firstly, about whatever record deals I ever signed. And then the other thing that I used to notice about artists that I like was that maybe the first album, which was probably brought to the record label via a demo, was the one that I loved. And then over time, I'm just like, then you stop following an artist. And I always thought that possibly because when they do the demo, they're putting their heart and soul into everything, and this is who they are, they get signed, and then labels tend to channel them towards the model that they are able to sell, So later, as I progressed, as I got to the point where I started making my own music, considering my own album, I realized that one of the things that I've always wanted as an artist is to be free. I want to be a free artist. I want to really, if I'm going this way, I'm going that way. Because even with music, even with taste in music, there's sometimes where I'm just like, I don't want to hear jazz at all, And then other times where just like, oh my gosh, that's all I want to hear. Then sometimes I want to hear classical. So all those influences, I think, enrich the kind of music that I write. But I never wanted to be sort of told by people that don't write this, don't write that, don't do this. We want you to have straight hair, or we want you to wear dresses or wear pants, or you know what I mean. And understandably, I mean, record labels are very good at making a product, placing it with its audience, and so on. But I think what has happened with the digital age of music is that artists have been able to find their audiences a little bit more easily, without necessarily compromising themselves. I think those things that record labels bring are always going to be invaluable. But what I think one of the pros of doing it this way has been the fact that I actually learned so much about it. And at any point, if I ever decide to sign with a label, I'm very aware of what it is I want the label to do for me, what it is I'm willing to do for myself, etc., etc. Yeah.
What are the cons of being an indie artist?
Financing. Financing is the con. I mean, like if you think about it like a business, being an indie is almost being like a startup that doesn't have anyone who knows who you are, believes in you yet, and you just have to do everything yourself, which can be very exhausting, and it can take a lot away from the music. So sometimes I find myself doing so much admin and not enough of the music that I want to be doing. But I always think it's temporary. So I think the important thing is to see the part as temporary, to be aware of the fact that, okay, I just go back to the music, so that I'm not getting drowned in the emails, the proposals, the business plan writings and all that. It's really about trying to balance yourself at the beginning, but the con is definitely the financing. The contact as well, you have to build your own networks. But I haven't had such a, I wouldn't say that I have access to networks, but because I've always just had that thing where I'm really good with people, I've maintained long-standing relationships that have really helped me find the right person where I've needed to in some instances. But yeah, those are the main ones.
And besides being free in what you produce in terms of music, what would you say are the pros of being indie artist?
Besides being free, being an indie artist allows you also, I guess it adds to freedom as well, but it allows you the time to develop your music at your own pace, without having to stick to a deadline that the record label would give you. The other thing that I like about being indie is that I get to choose collaborations based on what I want to do, and not necessarily on what someone thinks will be good for me or for my profile or whatever. I get to do collaborations that I really enjoy. I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can tell. Well, I think the indie artists are very, very brave in this country. In a country with hardly any venues to perform at, and no support from a radio station. Also because our online radio market hasn't really taken off in the way it has in like Europe and all that. So we, like, independent artists here are just like, we're the crazy ones. But I do think in places where there's at least live venues where people can find the music somewhere at some spot, then indie artists have a better chance of reaching their audiences and having the audience embrace them, you know. But I have found that many times, for example, there's a spot in Braamfontein, the Orbit, which opened about 3 years back, and it's been amazing for the musicians, because so many people are putting out music, and it's just the vibe, you know. Cape Town musicians are coming, Durban musicians are coming, there's a mix of musicians, people are coming from everywhere, and that's really good for the creative scene. And then I've had gigs where people come there, because it used to be the Puma Social Club or something. People come there because they just wanted to check out what's happening, and they're not jazz listeners. They listen to the music, they come after the show, they're like, wow, I mean, I've never listened to jazz in my life, but I like what you guys are doing. And so I think the audience is ready. I really do believe that people always just like good music, and the audience is ready for indie artists. But my music has gotten onto radio stations through people I know on the station. You know, so I've met the radio DJ of this show or that show, and also I guess knowing which shows to place my music on, because I won't take my jazz song and say to Highfeld Stereo that yo, you know. So it's a mix of that, but I haven't found it too challenging, because I have had a lot of support from the people that I do know at the various stations that have played my music. Well, I don't know if anyone has stolen my music. That's what, sometimes with copyright you find out years later that hey, there's this song of mine that's being used in an advert in Poland, and no one paid me for it, you know. Which is where the importance of having a publisher comes in, and someone who can follow up on your music and how it's working. But before even having a publisher, having someone represent you as a publisher or an administrator of your publishing, it's important to learn about this stuff, you know, to read up about it, to know what is allowed, what's not allowed, you know. It's a huge, like, and I always say this, I wish university taught this, because university I learned about jazz, how to play jazz, how to analyze jazz, how to listen to jazz, who are the jazz musicians, the history of jazz, but there's so much about the business of music that I wish was covered in university. It would save so many people so much time. Like, I think a whole year could be dedicated on music publishing and copyright, because there's so much there that is so intricate, you know, and not knowing that information can be very disempowering. If you are not passionate about this thing, don't do it. That's the first advice, because it's really like, it's not what you think it is before you start doing it. When I was 16, no one would have ever convinced me that I would be like reading up about publishing and trying to learn legal terms that have to do with music copyright. If you're not passionate about it, rather do something you're passionate about. That's the first thing. The second thing is, don't ever feel like someone has to know the information for you. Yeah, you can get experts, but educate yourself. You are less likely to be swindled if you know your story. And the third thing, don't be afraid. The thing I've learned is that, you know, the story of the tortoise and the hare, where they're on a race and the hare goes and the tortoise just goes, and I think an indie artist can be compared to an artist who's signed like that, as a hare, someone who just goes, well, today we don't know you, tomorrow we know you. But an indie artist has a longer process of getting out there, but there is something very valuable about slow, steady consistency. And I would advise someone who's up and coming not to feel like it will never happen just because it's not happening fast, you know. Definitely an album. Definitely an album this year. I'm not even finished with that album, but it's coming together like in pieces and drips and drabs. I would like to go on tour as well. You know, in the future, expect a Grammy or 10. Speak it into being. And you know, I don't know. Like I think that I follow the flow of things. So I cannot fully say what people can expect, but those are the things that I can definitely say for sure. They're coming.
When did you start doing yoga?
When? The first encounter with yoga I had was, I was still in university. My sister was doing yoga, and then she taught me Tibetan yoga, and I did it, and I felt good, but I wasn't consistent at all. Like, I'd do it once every 6 months. But then in 2015, I was reading a book by Wayne Dyer called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And I was reading that book, and the whole book, he was just talking about yoga. And in my head, I was like, you know, I've been needing to do this yoga thing. Ding, ding, ding. And I was like, let me do yoga. So I found a yoga place, and then I joined, went, did the yoga. It was so crazy. And I couldn't believe how hard this thing actually was. Because I always used to think, I like exercising, sweating.
Like,
But these people, they do this. And
calm.
they're like, namaste. I was just like, so boring. But I did the yoga and I died. Like, literally, I think the first day I slept as though someone hit me with a bus. And then I'm like, okay, there's something to this thing. Then I started reading up on literature about yoga and its history and how it's a physical practice, but it's also a spiritual practice, and it's also a healing mechanism for your organs, your general well-being. Reading, and I'm like now getting really into this thing and interested. And then as time went as well, I was also just observing the changes in my body. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I stopped eating chicken, and that feeling of not liking chicken happened when I started yoga, and I was just like, I don't like this thing anymore. Stop eating chicken. My body just stopped craving for certain things that were not good for me, like sweets and sugar, all the yummy things. And like it really transformed my body. And I don't have asthma anymore. I used to have asthma. That's
good.
It's been good. It's just the beginning. I mean, there's people who have been practicing for years, like 15 years. Me saying I've been practicing for over a year, it's like, oh, that's not sweet, cute, So I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying how my body has changed and just feeling calmer. I think I need it also because you're a stressful life. Woo! But yeah, it's been good. And I stopped eating chicken and then realized that I don't eat any other thing. Like, I didn't eat much fish and red meat and pork. I didn't eat much of that. So then I realized that when I don't eat chicken, I hardly eat meat. So I'm not vegetarian, but I really don't eat much meat. I don't really buy meat for myself in the house. But when it's there and I feel like it, I eat it. I try sometimes eating a raw veggie diet, not like for life, but maybe just to cleanse, and it's good. But sometimes you just want to have some grease.
Once in a while, but you could do it.
Yeah, I could. I think what eating no chicken / being a vegetarian who changes their mind at other people's houses it's taught me to be conscious about food. So when you don't eat meat, you need to know that, okay, I need enough protein in my thingy. Where am I going to find it from? And now when you eat ubonchis, beans, you can't just like wake up and cook them. You have to soak it. So you have to be like focused. If you are not focused, then you're going to just eat rice and gravy and not get enough nutrients, But it's really taught me to be conscious about what I put into my mouth, and it spills over to other areas of your life. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about how artists make money, blah blah blah. If you ever have the choice between streaming and download the song, like buy it, because the way the industry has changed, it's like completely difficult to make money off your music from sales. So if ever you are wondering, should I buy this artist's music or should I just stream it? Buy it. And that's all.
Buy it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Only if you like it though, but yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
This is TransAfrica Radio.